The Arena of Shame. The arena was huge, built from black stone and shining metal. It stretched like a monster's mouth, wide and endless. Every seat was filled with alien faces, eyes glowing, voices loud. They laughed, shouted, and demanded blood. In the middle of the arena was sand, red with old stains. This was not a place for sport. It was a place of cruelty. Here, species were tested, but humans were never seen as warriors. They were only prey, weak creatures to be mocked. The aliens loved this show. Every time a human entered, the fight ended fast. Humans blood, humans cria, humans dia. The crowd cheered louder, enjoying the shame. To them, humans were nothing more than entertainment. Above the arena, the rulers of the alien empires sat in golden thrones. They were tall, armored, and proud. They believed their kind was born strong, born to dominate. They called themselves the Eternal Dominion, and they called humans meat, insects, fragile toys. Today, the arena was louder than ever. The announcer, an alien with a long throat and booming voice, shouted, "Another human sacrifice! Another weakling for our champion!" The crowd roared with hunger. They wanted to see weakness broken again. From a dark gate, guards pushed a human forward. He stumbled into the light, thin, dusty, and chained. His clothes were torn, his hair was wild. He looked more like a prisoner than a fighter. The aliens laughed even harder. "Look at him! So small, so soft. He will die in seconds." The sound of mockery filled the air. Every word stabbed like knives. But the human said nothing. He only raised his eyes and looked at the crowd. His gaze was calm, not angry, not afraid. Almost too calm for someone about to die. The announcer pointed at him and shouted, "This, my friends, is your entertainment. This is the weakness of Earth. This is what they call a man." The crowd booed and laughed again. Then the ground shook. From the opposite gate, the champion entered, a monster of muscle and armor, standing 3 times taller than the human. His skin was like stone, his weapon was a giant blade. Every step made the arena floor tremble. The aliens cheered wildly. "Champion! Champion! End him fast!" The champion raised his weapon to the sky. His roar echoed like thunder. He had defeated hundreds in this place. He had never been beaten, and now another human was about to die by his hand. The human stood still. No fear showed on his face. No shaking, no crying, just silence. He lifted his head and looked directly at the champion. Their eyes met, and for a second, the champion hesitated. Something in that calm stare felt strange, but the crowd did not notice. They only shouted for blood. The announcer raised his voice. "Begin the fight. Let weakness face power." The champion charged. His weapon swung like a storm. The ground broke under his steps. The crowd screamed with joy. They were ready to see another human crushed. But still, the human did not move. He stood there quiet, waiting, like someone holding a secret. The moment stretched. The champion's shadow grew larger as he came closer. The crowd was already laughing. They thought the fight was over before it even began. But deep inside the silence, something hidden was waking, something no alien expected. And the arena, full of laughter now, would soon fall into silence. Because this was not the end of a weak human. This was the beginning of something far greater. And the Eternal Dominion was about to witness their first taste of fear. The mockery continues. The crowd was already wild. Their voices shook the air. Their laughter carried like thunder. They had seen humans break before, and they wanted to see it again. The arena was a place where hope always died. And today, they believed, would be no different. The alien champion stood tall, armor glistening, weapon raised. He was their pride, their symbol of power. He had broken beasts, machines, and warriors from 10 worlds. To him, a human was nothing more than a fly under his hand. The announcer's voice rang across the arena. "Behold, the champion of the Eternal Dominion, unbeaten, unbroken, the crusher of weak flesh." The crowd roared with pride, and then the announcer turned toward the human. And here, we present this soft animal called man. The last joke of a dying world. Laughter rolled like a wave. Aliens slapped their seats, hissed and mocked. Pathetic, useless, weak. Some spat on the ground at the sight of the human. Others made animal sounds, calling him a pet. Even children in the stands mocked. Because to them, humans were the lowest form of life. The human stood in silence. Dust clung to his skin, the chain still heavy on his wrists. But his face was unreadable. Not broken, not angry, just calm. He looked at the champion with steady eyes. And the champion felt it. A strange weight in that stare. But he shook it off, laughing to himself. This one will fall even faster than the rest, he thought. The announcer shouted, "Let the show begin." And the crowd stamped their feet. The arena shook under their rhythm. The champion tightened his grip on his weapon. Every muscle ready to strike. Every part of the crowd ready to enjoy the kill. He charged. Sand flew behind him. His steps were like hammers. His blade cut the air with a scream of metal. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for the human to scream. But the human only stood, watching, waiting, unmoving. The champion laughed as he closed the distance. "Stand still then, little prey. Let me finish you fast." His weapon came down in a deadly arc. But at the last moment, the human tilted his head slightly. The blade missed by inches, smashing into the ground. Dust exploded into the air. The crowd gasped, not from fear but from surprise. They had expected blood, but there was none. The champion pulled his weapon free and growled. "That was luck," he spat. Again he swung. Again the human moved only a little. Just enough, no more, no less. The crowd started to laugh again. "Run, human. Run while you can." But the human did not run. He was not fleeing. He was studying. Every time the champion struck, the human's calm eyes followed. His body shifted with small, simple steps. It was as if he already knew where the blade would fall. And for the first time, the champion began to feel something he had never felt. Annoyance. "Why don't you fight back?" he shouted. "Are you afraid?" But the human stayed silent. He simply raised his head and stared deeper into the alien's eyes. And for a brief second, the champion froze. It was like standing before a mirror that saw too much. Like someone touching his mind without permission. He shook it off, roaring in anger. But the unease had already begun. The crowd continued to laugh. They did not see the tension building. They only saw a weak creature dodging. To them, it was a dance of fear. They shouted insults, threw objects into the sand. "Fall already, di alveati." But the humans still did not fall. And every second of silence made the champion's rage grow. The alien swung harder, faster. But the arena seemed to grow smaller. The sound of the crowd seemed distant. The champion's heart beat faster. And then he realized something. The human was no longer avoiding randomly. He was leading the fight. Every step, every movement, was guiding the champion into a pattern. Like a spider weaving a web around its prey. The human's eyes narrowed slightly, and the champion's breath caught in his chest. He did not know why, but his stomach twisted with sudden fear. The laughter of the crowd could not hide the truth building in his mind. This human was not prey. He was something else, something hidden, something dangerous. And for the first time in the arena's long history, the champion felt the cold touch of doubt. The first crack of power. The arena had never been this loud. The crowd was wild, drunk on mockery and cruelty. The champion attacked again and again. And every time, the human moved only a little. He did not strike. He did not scream. He only avoided. To the crowd, it looked like a game. To the champion, it felt like a trap. Sweat ran down the alien's skin. His muscles bulged with every swing. But his strikes meant nothing, only sand and stone. The human stood calm, almost still. His eyes never left the champion, and the silence around him grew heavier. At last the champion roared. "Enough!" His voice shook the ground. He raised his massive weapon high. The crowd cheered with fury. "Yes, crush him. End it now." The alien slammed the weapon down with all his strength. But something happened. The human lifted his hand, slowly, quietly, and the weapon froze in the air. It did not fall, it did not move. It hung there, trembling, as if held by invisible chains. The crowd went silent. The laughter died. Every alien eye blinked in confusion. The champion's arm strained. He tried to force the blade downward, but would not move. It was as if the air itself had turned solid. The human's gaze sharpened. A faint light flickered in his eyes. Not fire, not flame, but something deeper, something inside. The champion gasped. His chest tightened. A burning pain stabbed inside his head. He dropped to one knee, clutching his skull. The crowd screamed in shock. This had never happened before. "What is this?" shouted one alien lord from the high throne. Another hissed, "Trickery. It must be technology." But no device was seen, no weapon in the human's hand. Only silence and a strange, invisible force. The champion thrashed, his veins bulging. He slammed his weapon to the ground, but it slipped away from his grip like a toy. The sand shook as the blade fell uselessly. And still, the human stood calm, hand lifted, eyes glowing faintly. Then it happened again. The champion screamed, not from rage, but from fear, a sound no alien had ever heard from him before. He clawed at his own head as if trying to tear something out. The human's voice, soft and quiet, finally broke the silence. "You see us as weak, but you never saw the strength you cannot touch." The crowd gasped as blood dripped from the champion's nose. He staggered, eyes wide with panic. He tried to swing again, but his body jerked as if pulled by unseen hands. The arena floor cracked beneath him. The air grew heavy, thick, pressing down on everyone. Even the audience felt it, a pressure in their skulls. Whispers spread, fast and terrified. "Impossible, a human cannot do this." The announcer stumbled, voice shaking. This cannot be." For the first time, his words failed him. The alien lords leaned forward on their thrones. Faces pale, pride trembling. They had mocked humans for weakness. But here, before their eyes, a human was breaking their champion without a single weapon. The champion screamed again. His knees hit the sand, his body shaking. The crowd did not cheer. The laughter had died completely. Only silence and fear remained. The human lowered his hand slowly, and the invisible pressure lifted. The champion collapsed forward, gasping like a drowning man, but his eyes were wide with horror. He looked at the human not as prey, but as a predator. The human stepped closer, his voice still calm. "You mocked us. You chained us. But today, you will remember us." The crowd could not move. They could not speak. All across the arena, fear spread like fire. For the first time in history, aliens looked at a human and trembled. Fear in the audience. The champion had never been on his knees before, not once in his long history, not once in all his battles. But now, in the sand of the arena, before the smallest of opponents, he knelt, and the galaxy watched in silence. The crowd stared. Tens of thousands of alien eyes wide with disbelief. Their mouths open, their laughter gone. The air felt heavy, as if even sound was afraid to move. "This is a trick," one voice whispered. "It must be some hidden weapon," another said. But no weapon was seen, no machine, no armor. Only a human, frail and ordinary, yet holding power that no alien champion could resist. On the golden thrones above, the alien lords shifted uncomfortably, their faces once proud, now stiff. One of them hissed, "A human should not be able to do this." Another whispered, "If one can, what if more exist?" The thought spread like poison. For the first time, the Dominion's rulers tasted the flavor of fear. The champion growled, forcing himself to rise. His body shook, but his pride burned hotter than his pain. He could not allow himself to be broken by a human, not in front of the entire empire. With a roar, he stood, blood dripping from his nose, his weapon broken, his hands trembling, but his rage burning like fire. The crowd cheered weakly, not from joy, but from desperation. They wanted to believe their champion was still strong. They wanted to believe the human's power was only an illusion. Fight! Fight! Crush him! Voices shouted. But the cheers lacked their old strength. It was the sound of fear pretending to be courage. The champion rushed forward again, every muscle screaming, every step shaking the sand. The human did not move. His eyes glowed faintly, calm, certain. The champion's fist swung like a hammer. But before it could land, he stopped, frozen, as if invisible hands gripped his entire body. The crowd gasped. The mighty warrior stood trapped in the air, arms locked, legs stiff, chest heaving. The human raised his hands slowly, and the champion rose off the ground. His feet left the sand, his body lifted like a puppet on strings. Impossible, the announcer whispered, his voice trembling. The crowd leaned forward, silent, every eye fixed on the impossible sight. The champion, their greatest symbol, suspended helplessly by a human's unseen strength. The human spoke, his voice calm. You mock my kind. You made us bleed for your games. But today, you will feel what we carried inside. The champion screamed, struggling against the invisible grip. His muscles bulged, veins swelling. But no matter how he fought, the air itself crushed him tighter. Some of the audience began to shake. A mother pulled her child close. A warrior in the stands clenched his fists nervously. The laughter of the past felt like a sin now, because they realized something terrifying. The weakest creature in the galaxy was no longer weak. One alien lord slammed his fist on the throne. Stop him! Stop this now! But no one moved. Even the guards by the gates hesitated. How could they fight a power they did not understand? If a champion could not resist, what chance did they have? The human lowered his hand, and the champion dropped like a stone. The ground cracked under his weight. He coughed blood, gasping. He tried to rise again, but his body refused. The arena shook with his failure. The human stepped closer, his shadow falling across the broken warrior. He looked at him, not with hatred, but with something colder. Disappointment. You thought strength was only muscle, but you never saw the strength of the mind. The champion groaned, his pride shattered. The crowd, once proud and cruel, now sat in silence. Every laugh they had given to human weakness echoed back at them like a curse. For the first time in the great arena, fear was not aimed at the human. It was aimed at themselves. Every alien in the stands wondered the same question. If this one man could do this, what would happen if more humans had the same power? And that thought, that whisper of possibility, was more dangerous to the Dominion than any blade. The turning point. The champion lay in the sand, broken but not finished. His chest heaved, his body shook, but in his eyes pride still burned. He was the symbol of alien power, the pride of the Dominion. He could not accept defeat, not to a human, not in front of the galaxy. With a roar, he slammed his fist into the ground and forced himself up. The crowd gasped as his massive frame rose again. Blood poured from his mouth. His armor was cracked, his weapon broken. But he stood tall, trembling yet defiant. The crowd cheered, desperate to believe. Yes, champion, stunt, fight again. Their voices were not strong, but they clung to him as if he were their last hope. Because if he fell, the mockery of humans would turn into the shame of the Dominion. The human watched him rise, calm as ever. His face showed no fear, no pity, only patience. It was as if he had expected this moment, as if he was waiting for the champion's final struggle. The alien roared and charged. His fists swung like meteors. His broken blade dragged across the sand, sparking with fury. Every strike was wild, desperate, fueled by rage and pride. The human did not step back. This time he lifted both hands, and the air bent. The champion's charge slowed, each step heavier than the last. It was as if he was running through invisible mud. The harder he pushed, the slower he moved. The crowd leaned forward in shock. Their champion was fighting not against flesh, but against reality itself. He screamed, forcing his arm forward. The broken blade lifted, shaking in his grip, and with one final effort, he swung at the human's head. The crowd held their breath. This was it. The last strike, the last chance. But the blade stopped inches away. Frozen in the air, the champion's arms trembled. His eyes bulged as the invisible force locked him in place. The human's gaze sharpened, and with a thought, the weapon shattered into dust. The arena fell silent. The crowd could only stare. The champion looked at his empty hands, and in that moment, the greatest warrior of the Dominion understood fear. The human stepped closer, his voice quiet, but strong enough to reach every corner of the arena. You thought we were weak, because you only looked at our bodies, but you never looked deeper. You never saw what we carry inside. The champion roared in defiance, but his voice cracked. The human raised his hand again. The champion's body lifted into the air. He thrashed, kicking, screaming, but the invisible grip grew tighter. His chest caved under pressure, his limbs strained, and then with a sudden crash, he was slammed into the ground. The sand exploded around him. The earth shook with the force. The crowd gasped. Some stood in shock, others covered their eyes. Their champion lay broken, his body too heavy to rise. He reached out weakly, his fingers trembling in the dust. But his strength was gone. For the first time, the galaxy's greatest warrior was defeated. The human stood over him, calm, silent, unmoved. His eyes glowed faintly, and for a moment, everyone in the arena felt the weight of his mind. It pressed against their thoughts, cold, sharp, undeniable, as if reminding them, you are not untouchable. You are not safe. The announcer tried to speak, but his voice broke. No, this cannot be the end. Yet it was. The champion coughed blood, his eyes dim, his pride shattered, and the human looked around the arena, at every alien who once mocked his kind. You laughed at us, he said. You chained us, but you cannot chain the mind. The words struck deeper than any weapon, because in that moment, the aliens realized a truth they had never considered. If one human could do this, then humanity was not weak. Humanity was waiting, silent, hidden, and now awake. The turning point had come. The age of laughter had ended, and in its place, the age of fear had begun. Shattered pride. The champion lay broken in the sand. The arena that once thundered with laughter was now silent. No cheer, no mockery, no joy. Only the heavy weight of disbelief. The human stood tall in the center, not with weapons, not with armor, but with something invisible, something that no alien had ever faced. The crowd could not look away. They had mocked his kind as prey, but now they stared at him as predator. High above on golden thrones, the rulers of the Dominion sat frozen, their faces twisted between rage and fear. Their empire was built on strength, on the belief that they were unbreakable. And here, in front of them all, one human had shattered that belief. One of the lords slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. Unacceptable, he hissed. This is not victory. This is corruption. It must be a trick. Another lord leaned forward, his eyes narrow, his voice low. If it is no trick, then our empire has made a grave mistake. We laughed at them. We used them as toys. But if more like him exist, then we may have woken an enemy. The words cut through the silence like a knife, and every ruler on the throne felt the same chill. The Dominion's pride had cracked, and the crack was spreading. Down below, the crowd shifted uneasily. Some whispered, "This cannot be real." Others muttered, "What if more humans have this power?" The fear spread like fire. It leapt from row to row, until the whole arena hummed with dread. The champion groaned weakly, his voice broken, his pride gone. He tried to stand again, but his body betrayed him. The crowd saw their hero crawl in the sand, and the image tore their pride apart. The announcer, once loud and cruel, now trembled at the edge of the platform. His voice cracked as he spoke. The champion has fallen." He could not finish the words, because to say them was to admit the unthinkable. The human turned slowly, his calm gaze sweeping across the arena. Every alien felt it, that invisible weight pressing on their minds. It was not just power, it was a warning. We are not what you think. The unspoken message rang louder than any shout. One alien in the stands cried out, "They are dangerous. They must be destroyed before more rise." But even as the words left his mouth, fear shook his voice. The crowd did not cheer with him. They sat frozen, because deep down they knew the truth. Destroying humanity might not be so simple anymore. The rulers whispered among themselves. "Cover this up," one said. "No one must know what happened here." Another shook his head. "Fool, the story will already spread. Every witness here will carry it. Every slave will whisper it, and whispers become rebellion." The human finally lowered his eyes. The glow faded, but his silence was louder than any threat. He did not need to roar or boast. The image of their fallen champion was enough. The crowd had seen weakness in their strongest, and they had seen strength in their weakest. For the Dominion, that was more dangerous than defeat. It was humiliation. It was fear turned inward. It was pride broken into dust. The guards at the gates hesitated. Should they rush the human? Should they kill him now? But none moved, because in their hearts, they knew they would meet the same fate as their champion. The champion coughed blood, his voice barely a whisper. "This is not possible." But no one believed him, because they had all seen it. The impossible had already happened. The human finally spoke again, his voice soft. "You built your empire on our weakness. But weakness was never the truth. You only saw what you wanted to see." His words echoed across the arena. And for the first time, no alien dared to answer. High on the throne, the Dominion's rulers sat in silence. Their empire had not yet fallen, but pride had, and pride, once broken, is the first stone of collapse. The crowd began to shift, restless. Some looked at the human with hatred, others with awe, but all of them with fear, because deep inside, they understood nothing would be the same again. Humanity's rise. The arena was quiet, the sand stained with blood, the champion broken. The laughter that once filled the air had vanished. In its place was fear, heavy and sharp. The crowd did not cheer. They did not mock. They only stared at the human who stood in silence. That silence spread beyond the walls, through the city of the Dominion, through the channels of traitors and spies, through the whispers of slaves in chains. The story moved faster than fire. The human broke the champion. The weakest defeated the strongest. The prey has become predator. And with every retelling, the story grew sharper. The details blurred, but the meaning was clear. Humans were not weak. Not anymore. In the slave pits of distant worlds, humans lifted their heads when they heard the tale. In the mines, in the factories, in the ships of the Dominion, they whispered to one another, "If one of us can fight them, maybe we all can." A spark lit in their eyes. A spark the Dominion had tried to crush for generations. The rulers of the Dominion met in secret halls. Their voices low, their faces pale. "We must erase this," one said. "Silence every witness, burn every record." But another answered, "You cannot kill a story. It is already alive. It is already moving." And he was right, because across the stars, the tale of the human with a mind of fire spread. He was called many names, the breaker of chains, the shadow of thought. But one name rose above all others. The mind breaker, the champion who once stood as invincible now lay as proof. Proof that humans were more than weak flesh. Proof that humans carried a hidden strength. And that proof could not be buried. The Dominion feared rebellion. And rebellion came. Small at first, hidden in shadows. A guard found dead in his sleep. A factory burned in the night. A transport ship vanished into darkness. Every act carried the same whisper. For the mind breaker, aliens who once mocked now looked over their shoulders. They feared every human hand, every human eye, because they no longer saw prey. They saw danger. The Dominion tried to tighten its grip. More chains, more punishments, more blood. But the harder they pressed, the faster the whispers spread, and the stronger the humans grew. In the arena, the human who had broken the champion stood silent. The guards did not dare move against him. The crowd did not dare breathe too loud. He looked up at the golden thrones, at the rulers who once laughed at his kind. His voice rose, calm and steady. You thought us broken, but you broke yourselves. The words burned deeper than fire, because every alien knew they were true. The Dominion had mocked humans, but in doing so, they had revealed a power they did not understand. The human turned and walked toward the gate. No one stopped him. Not the guards, not the lords, not the crowd. The doors opened, and he vanished into the shadows. But his presence did not fade. It spread, like a storm building across the galaxy. In the days that followed, every alien who had witnessed the fight carried the story. Some in fear, some in anger, but all in truth. The Dominion had been challenged, and their pride had been shattered. The age of mockery was over. The age of fear had begun, and for the first time, the galaxy whispered a new word with caution. Human. The Mindbreaker had risen, and with him, humanity's rise had only just begun.